All right. Hello and welcome back to the Carl Jackson Show. Right now, I'm joined by my guest, Jessica Vaughn. She's the Director of Policy Studies at the Center for Immigration Studies. And we've got a lot to talk about when it comes to mass deportation, Trump's second term in office, and how he's going to handle border issues. So I want to go right to my guest and welcome her in. Jessica, welcome to the Carl Jackson Show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Carl, for having me.
Absolutely. Okay, so let me get straight to this. I believe there needs to be a mass deportation. I believe President Trump, that was one of the issues that he ran on, that I believe he won on. But I have some concerns, Jessica, because I'm afraid that as soon as President Trump gets into office, January 20th, we're going to start hearing the violins playing all throughout media, and I'm a little concerned that that's going to impact some Republicans. Are you concerned about that at all?
Well, there's no question that there will be a narrative that opponents of immigration enforcement are going to try to weave with the help of media outlets. And it's starting already. We're already starting to hear stories about people who are concerned about what's going to happen under the new administration. But, we have to remember that people understood that this was going to be the policy of the Trump administration. To a great extent, what we know from the post-election polls and exit polls, and even the polls prior to the election, was that most Americans want to see immigration laws enforced. We welcome immigrants who come through our legal system, but what we've experienced under the Biden administration was historic levels of illegal migration that has overwhelmed many communities around the United States, with terrible consequences for individuals as well, and that they want an end to this. And nobody wants to see people rounded up and dragged through the streets. But there's, that's like a cartoon version of immigration enforcement that the open borders advocates want people to believe is going to happen, but it is not going to look like that. I can assure everyone.
What is it going to look like? I'm glad you mentioned that. So what will it look like? What should our viewers be prepared to see and to hear, to watch?
Well, I don't think people are really going to see a lot of it. Well, the first thing that's going to happen, I believe, is that the border is going to be secured, that the catch and release policies are going to be terminated, and that fewer people are going to start to come. And the people who are still coming are going to be detained and removed in facilities near the border. But within the country, what we're going to see is that ICE primarily is going to remain focused on that fraction of the illegal immigrant population that has been arrested for committing state and local crimes. They're going to find most of their targets for removal in jails around the country. Okay. That's historically how ICE has operated. That's their priority. They want to remove people who are causing problems in the community, and they work with local law enforcement agencies to do that. So that's not something that's really visible to most people. And there will be some other operations as well. I expect that there will be some enforcement at the workplace to go after employers who are hiring illegal workers instead of available American workers or legal immigrant workers. I think that we're going to see ICE probably go after people who've already been through the process and skipped out on their immigration hearings or, ignored an order of removal. Those people really, that's a legitimate target for ICE.
Sure.
And that's what we're going to see ICE focus on the most.
One of the narratives that we're already hearing, and you've been talking about, or you mentioned the narratives that obviously we're already seeing and we're going to continue to see from the left. And already I'm hearing about the cost. Well, the cost of deporting so many of these migrants, they never mention, illegals or illegal aliens. They're migrants, they're residents, but never mind the fact that they invaded our country. But it's the narrative is always the cost. And I'm sitting here thinking, well, what about the cost of keeping them in the country and paying all of these welfare checks and hotel room stays and all of this kind of stuff? I understand there may be some workers that may work on farms and stuff like that. But certainly that's not 13, 15, or however many millions of illegals that have come into the country under the Biden-Harris administration.
Well, that's exactly right. And we have to remember that there are Americans who can do those jobs, who've dropped out of the labor force, who should be the highest priority for us in terms of finding employment and encouraging employers to hire them. And the cost of illegal immigration on an annual basis is tens of billions of dollars a year, really approaching $100 billion a year when you count state and local costs and federal costs. And that's because a lot of people who come here illegally have children here, and those children are eligible for all kinds of services. It's because this population needs medical care quite often. And
Right.
so they're able to get that through emergency rooms and clinics around the country. And also, hundreds of thousands of the inadmissible migrants that the Biden administration allowed to come here and resettle, they have been given work permits, which also gives them access in some cases, the Venezuelans, Haitians, Ukrainians, Afghans, they're immediately eligible for the whole array of welfare programs that American citizens are eligible for. So this has been enormously costly. And so, to remove people who should not be here in the first place, before they're able to access these expensive benefits is actually going to save taxpayers an enormous amount of money.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. There's and it's obvious to me that what the Democrat Party is attempting to do is import Democrats. I mean, it seems blatantly clear to me. There's this currently in Pennsylvania, you have these city council members that are literally trying to steal the election, Bucks County, steal the election from Senator-elect Bob McCormick by counting, if I'm not mistaken, illegals who did not properly enter ballots the right way or whatever it may have been. I believe they were supposed to be with the signature inside of an envelope, if I'm not mistaken. But I mean, these people are absolutely blatant, and there's no doubt in my mind that this is what Democrats would like to do across the country. Are you concerned that if President Trump doesn't get this right now, then what we're going to see across the United States is an effort by the Democrat Party to just totally nix voter ID laws nationwide so that they're in power in perpetuity?
Well, I think one of the real risks here, there is a risk that people who are not eligible to vote, who are not citizens, are actually being allowed to register and vote. There's some evidence of that happening in Maine, for example, where social service workers were told to register people, even though they knew that they were not in the country legally, much less, citizens. So there is a little bit of that, but the greater long-term electoral problem is that the way we count immigrants in the census.
Right.
So the way congressional districts are set up, they are allocated based on the total population of a district.
Sure.
And so these populations that have a lot of immigrants, and even illegal immigrants, are kind of stuffed with constituents, but they don't have to earn as many votes to get elected. And this is true in places like parts of California,
Sure,
some parts of New York, whereas a representative in, say, Iowa has to work for more votes of citizens, and those citizens are sharing their electoral power, their voting power, with non-citizens in other parts of the country. And it really affects the way the House of Representatives is allocated and the relative power of some of these members of Congress who represent a lot of immigrants.
I'm so glad you mentioned that. We have just 50 seconds left in this block, but I know you're absolutely right. That's the case in California. Correct me if I'm wrong, but they would probably have, 5 to 6 or definitely fewer congressmen or women in the state of California were it not for the legal migrant population inside of California. I'm speaking to my guest, Jessica Vaughn. She is the Director of Policy Studies at the Center for Immigration Studies. We've got a whole lot more that we're going to talk about in the next block, so make sure you stay tuned. Meanwhile, please subscribe to our podcast wherever you go to get the podcast. The Carl Jackson Show is where you can find me. Also, all things social media, X, Instagram, Facebook, True Social, and Getter at the Carl Jackson Show. We'll be back. Hey, Carl Jackson here for MyPillow.com. The story of MyPillow is a testament to faith and transformation. Mike Lindell was once battling addiction, but he found a new path when he embraced faith and began following Jesus Christ. In gratitude, Mike is excited to share an exclusive offer with our listeners. Right now, the standard MyPillow is available for just $14.88, a savings that's too good to pass up, so make sure you don't. There's a limit of 10 per customer, so don't wait to take advantage of this amazing deal by using the promo code Carl, C-A-R-L. I don't spell it like the communists. Mike believes that God gave him the idea for MyPillow in a dream, and it's designed with your comfort in mind. The pillow holds its shape and adapts perfectly to your unique sleep position, helping keep your neck aligned for the best night's sleep. And there's more. Take home a 4-piece kitchen set for only $25. Enjoy their new mattress topper starting at just $99.99, or pick up the luxurious MyPillow bed sheets starting at $49.98. Visit MyPillow.com or give them a call at 800-858-0263. Again, use promo code Carl, C-A-R-L, to unlock huge discounts. Don't miss out. Order today. Christmas is coming up fast. All right, welcome back to the program. Again, I'm joined by my guest, Jessica Vaughn. She is the Director of Policy Studies at the Center for Immigration Studies. Real quick, Jessica, where can people find you online, on X, or wherever you would like to be found?
Everything we do is on our website at cis.org. And I do tweet frequently on X, and my handle is at JessicaV_CIS.
Okay. And good stuff. I was actually checking out your X account earlier. And if you want to know about immigration or illegal immigration and how it's impacting the United States of America, I suggest that you follow her. You reposted earlier, Jessica, I believe it was Mark Krikorian, in a post that if the Republicans don't get this issue right when it comes to illegal immigration, when it comes to mass deportation, the Republican Party could essentially look like the Tories. They won all this power. They did nothing as far as immigration was concerned, except enabled more of it. And then they wound up out of power. Do you believe that'll happen to Republicans if this mass deportation effort does not occur?
Well, I think if they do not carry through on the promises that they made to voters, that is a real risk. And in fact, we saw a little bit of that in Trump's first term when Republicans did have control of the House at that time, and I believe the Senate as well. They did not deliver on some of these immigration-related reforms that needed to be made. There was different leadership in Congress at that time, and I think the leadership in the House currently is much stronger on immigration with Speaker Mike Johnson. But I realize that he does not have much of a majority, but he does hold the gavel. And people are expecting changes to be made and expecting these problems to be dealt with. They want to see more border wall. They want to see more removals from the country of people who shouldn't be here. And they want to get some relief from this enormous financial burden of supporting all the people that Biden let in abusing his authority. So they have a mandate. They need to use it. And, who knows what will happen in 2 years with control of Congress. It could get very dicey if they do not deliver.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. You know what's disconcerting to me, what I don't hear about enough, and you do if you go and check out their site, Center for Immigration Studies, CIS.org, I believe. Over 300,000, and Tom Homan, the incoming border czar, and man, do I love him for an incoming border czar. I would not mind him to be the head of the entire DHS, but that's a story for another day. Over 300,000 missing migrant children inside of the United States. God knows what they're enduring right now. Why do you suspect we don't hear much about those children?
Well, because open borders advocates and the Biden administration would like people to think that illegal migration is some kind of humanitarian event that we need to respond to. And nothing could be further from the truth, especially with respect to these kids. Because of a loophole in our current immigration law, when kids arrive by themselves without a grown-up or their parents, they are put into the custody of the Health and Human Services department. And the policy has been to release those kids as quickly as possible to a sponsor, usually without a background check, without a home study, without a financial assessment, or any way of determining if this is appropriate. We would never place foster kids without taking those steps and that due diligence. You can't even adopt a cat without a home study nowadays. And yet we're turning these kids over to labor traffickers, to sex traffickers, to criminal gangs who are exploiting these kids. And there is no post-release follow-up done. And a recent audit of this program by a government agency watchdog found that there were more than 300,000 kids that the government has lost track of. In the meantime, the hotlines for labor trafficking and sex trafficking involving children are blowing up. I mean, there are so many more reports of this happening nowadays that it's clear what's behind it. And that is this irresponsible policy of letting kids be turned over to people who are going to abuse and exploit them. And it's an absolute tragedy. I don't know why investigations have not been done to try to find these kids. I don't know why the Biden administration has doubled down on their lenient release policy. That is something that also needs to change very quickly.
Oh, we just lost her.
We're talking about kids. And just because they're from another country or came here illegally, that doesn't mean we should look the other way at horrible things that are happening to them and this kind of abuse that's happening.
Unbelievable. I can't wait till the Trump administration gets in, and I pray to God that we'll be able to save a lot of these children, if not all of them, from whatever torment they may be experiencing right now. Okay, several more questions for you. Only about 4.5 minutes left in this block. Sanctuary cities are protecting over 22,000 criminal illegal aliens from deportation as we speak. That's absolutely insane to me. What needs to happen there? And let me offer this. I'm not sure that we'll deport all of the illegals that entered during the Biden-Harris administration. Do we need a moratorium when it comes to future immigrants coming into the country? Sadly, even obviously legal immigrants.
That's a really good question. I'm glad you raised that because it is going to be tough. Deportations are going to increase. And I think as many people who are here illegally are going to leave on their own as the number who actually get forcibly deported by ICE, arrested and detained and deported. But this has been such a historic surge in mass migration. I think that it is going to be time for Congress to take a look at our legal immigration system and take steps to give our communities a pause in immigration to allow this all to settle down, give an opportunity for those immigrants who have come in recent years to become assimilated, to have job prospects, to become self-sufficient. And that is going to mean less immigration. It's like we really, as a country, have to digest what has happened in recent years in order to preserve a legal immigration system that Americans support and are proud of. We need to downsize immigration in order to make this work.
In other words, we need to do like President Bill Clinton did during his administration and Barack Obama, the deporter in chief, at some point in time, for whatever reason. That's no longer mentioned by the legacy media, but that's really important. The CBP1 app, do we know, is that still in operation? We just have 2.5 minutes left. A couple of more questions. But the CBP1 app, is it still being used by migrants to request an asylum claim or an asylum hearing inside of the United States from Mexico?
It is still being used.
Unbelievable.
They're letting people get to Mexico, sign up on this app, and essentially be waved through a legal port of entry. Many of them don't end up actually applying for asylum. They're just taking advantage of this opportunity to get into the country and live here, what they hope will be indefinitely. Because they're allowed to get away with it. And it is still in operation.
All right. That is just completely, that's just insane to me. I mean, it is absolutely appalling. And it's so frustrating to me because we don't talk about the illegal aliens coming through, our borders. But obviously, a lot of them, what they have to endure, even getting here with the Mexican cartel, so on, et cetera. This just seems this is not compassion at all. The last thing I want to touch on, and again, I'm speaking to Jessica Vaughn. She is the Director of Policy Studies at the Center for Immigration Studies. Find them online, Center for Immigration Studies, or CIS.org. Laken Riley, the murder trial has begun for her. Jose Ibarra, originally shipped to New York, basically, by the Biden-Harris administration. He wound up in Atlanta, Georgia, or Athens, Georgia, I believe, where he allegedly murdered Laken Riley. I'm just wondering how pervasive is crime amongst the illegal alien community that perhaps we don't even know about. We don't even speak about because they're not necessarily high profile like this. We have 40 seconds.
We don't know because many police agencies don't actually track that immigration status. But we do know that there was a prison gang in Venezuela whose members deliberately came here, took advantage of the open door policy at the border, and are now looking to establish themselves as a new transnational criminal power within the United States. And this guy, Ibarra, who is accused of killing Laken Riley, is associated with that gang, Tren de Aragua. And they're here specifically because they were allowed in by the Biden administration policies.
All right. We have to leave it there. Jessica Vaughn, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.